Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to my live stream. We are breaking some news. I literally just got in from work a couple of moments ago and wanted to jump online incredibly early for me as of late to be able to chat with you a little bit about some news that just came out, I think a little over an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half now, related to CGC. So I'll pause for a second, see if a couple of people are here in the room before we jump into this. And it looks like a couple of people are coming in. Santiago is here. Good to see you, brother. Comic Lover Omega is here. Tony Sanders is here. Andrea is here. How you doing? I thank you for the kind words. I'm glad that you like the channel. Kingpin Comics is here, and so is Joseph. You guys are flowing in now, man. Who That's here. Gotham City Comics is here. I am wearing a shirt. It has somewhat of a sleeve. You guys may not recognize me, but it is good to see all of you guys. Gregory, how you doing? Recognizing a couple of new names here, so definitely welcome each and every one of you to the live stream. A little early today for me to do live streams. I normally release videos at 3:30-ish Pacific time and then go live around 7:30-ish. So we are throwing a curveball here, and I'm glad to see a couple of you guys have joined us. So I am jumping online to talk a little bit about CGC's new announcement regarding their crossover services. I did a video on this maybe 2 weeks ago, and in that video it was titled, Is CGC going to put CBCS out of business? And it's a provocative title that was really designed to, you know, be provocative and to get people's attention. But the gist of that video was that CGC is introducing some new services that, in my opinion, are taking aim to some degree at CBCS. And I was being a little provocative and just speaking to the spirit of competition, right? CGC is definitely, in my opinion, taking a shot across the bow, and they are the market leader, and they are making some big moves that, in my opinion, could be taking aim at CBCS. And my hope is that CBCS gets its stuff together and pushes back and remains competitive, because I believe that competition is good for the consumer. I also believe that competition is good for companies, right? Because it incentivizes companies to be competitive. It incentivizes them to play with price, to play with services, to play with ways to differentiate themselves from the competition. And so it was a fun video to make, and what I decided to do today was, because it is breaking news, I decided to jump on here and go live and not do a formal video, because that would take me a couple of hours to do, and I wanted this to be a little bit more in real time. So a couple of other people are getting here. TJ Watson is saying CBCS will put themselves out of business. It is quite possible. Who That Comic says, I am Bruce Wayne in disguise, or Reggie in disguise. So let's run down this thing. This is going to be very organic, guys. And so one of the things that people have said about my videos is they like how the videos are structured. They tend to be thought out, and they tend to be, you know, laid out in the proper fashion. And part of the reason for that is because I take time to kind of think through what I want to say before I actually record the video. And luckily enough, I get most videos in like 1 or 2 takes, so that's very fortunate for me. But this is going to be much more organic. And so what I'm going to do is to kind of read the email that came out from CGC, and I'll layer onto it kind of like my commentary and my thoughts as I read through it. So one thing that I want to mention is that this email clarifies some areas of confusion that I raised in my previous video. And if you haven't watched that, you may want to check it out. But there are still some areas, in my opinion, that are a little obscure. And we'll kind of talk about that as we go through this thing. But the headline for this thing is over 5 million books graded. So they are really starting to tout the fact that they are the industry leader. They are highlighting this 5 million books graded. And my guess is that they're saying that because that is a major point of differentiation. And my guess is that CBCS cannot make a similar claim, right? 5 million is a lot of books, right? So let's acknowledge that. They say CGC sweetens crossover service with additional incentives, right? CGC's new crossover service, which was universally embraced by collectors at New York Comic-Con, has been expanded to include all CGC grading tiers on CGC's online submission form. So a couple of things there. Universally accepted, I don't know about that. That's a very broad statement to say that anything is universally accepted, especially by people in New York, right? Because New Yorkers, they have a certain way, right? And so I don't know if I would have ever said universally. As a marketer, I don't know that I would have ever said that. But that's aggressive. They were saying here that it's been expanded to include all grading tiers, which I think is great, because in my previous video and in previous email, they actually only spoke to, I think, 3 tiers in which the grading service or the crossover service was available, and it happened to be the most expensive tier. So it's good to know that they've expanded it. And they are also saying in here, and they acknowledged this in their first email, that now the service is available not just at a Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, but it is now available online as well. So if you have, if you are, subscribe to CGC, you have a membership, you now have the ability to submit your books to CGC for this crossover service. So there's a lot that they kind of packed into that. 2 new amazing incentives. So first, CGC will provide free screening for crossover submissions at its standard, express, and walkthrough tiers. So they're going to screen the book for free if it's submitted to them. And now what's interesting about this is that they're doing this free submission for standard, express, and walkthrough tiers, the 3 most expensive options for getting your books graded. What it does not acknowledge is what is the cost for the modern or the value or the economy options. It does not acknowledge those things. Guys, give me one sec. All right, now you know it is real time when I have to leave the computer, so I apologize for that. I actually had a box up here and it is full of comics, so I had to actually sign for that, so I apologize, guys. All right, so free screening for crossover. It's for the 3 most expensive tiers. It does not acknowledge what the cost is for the other tiers. So that's a little bit of a disappointment that there's no clarification on that. Second, this is the second sweetened thing that they're adding, that CGC will only charge a flat grading fee of $10 for any book submitted for crossover service that goes down a grade regardless of tier and value. So what's interesting there is that they're basically saying if your book goes down, you only pay 10 bucks. But there they acknowledge all tiers. They don't acknowledge all tiers for the screening, but just for the cost, right? So if the book goes down, you basically only pay 10 bucks. If the book stays the same, or if the grade goes up, then you will pay a reduced cost. And they actually get to that in the next graph. They say these incentives, along with the introductory crossover discount of up to 50% off regular grading fees for books that earn the same or higher grade. So what's interesting is that was one of the points that I raised before, is that they said 50% off grading services. And then when you do the calculation, the 3 tiers that they mentioned it wasn't always 50%. I think only 1 or 2 of them might have been 50%. One was short of that. And in this email, they are clarifying that it is up to 50% off. Not all of them, in other words, are a 50% off discount. So they do clarify that point, which I think is very good. And then again, like I said before, if it goes down, you pay 10 bucks. If it stays the same or goes up, you will have a discount that you will pay. And so what they're charging for a modern book for grading is 12 bucks, which is lower than PGX, I do believe. I think PGX is 13 bucks, and you guys may have to correct me on that. I think that it's 13 bucks. Value is $16.20. Economy, $22.80. Standard, $32.50. Express is $50, and walkthrough is 1.5 of the declared value up to $75. So it's actually not bad, right? I mean, they're definitely taking aim at both CBCS and also PGX with those low prices, right? Because I think PGX is the lowest. I think it's PGX, CBCS, and then I think CGC, but you guys may have to correct me on that. So there's a couple of points of clarification here which I think are great, but there's some other areas that I think are still just a little nebulous. And to that point, there's on the back side here, they say there is no guarantee that the grade assigned by CGC will be the same as the grade assigned by other grading services. So it could go up, it could stay the same, it could go down. They also note that signed collectible submitted under crossover service will not get a CGC signature series label. They actually stated that before, that there is no yellow label that will be assigned for books. But the problem is that it does not say still what happens with those books that are submitted. It doesn't tell us whether those books will, what type of label those books will get. My guess is that it won't be yellow, and it probably won't be blue. So the question is, what is it, and what kind of notation are they going to make on books that are signed books, that are authorized signed books, or that have been verified signed books by witness? So what's cool here though is that for the standard, express, and walkthrough levels, right, the 3 highest grades where they are screening them for free, the graders will screen the books in their holders. They will contact the people that have submitted the books with guidance on whether there will be a drop in grade, whether a press or conservation services might benefit the book. So that's pretty cool, right? So for those 3 most expensive tiers, they're going to give you the option of, keeping the book in its original holder, having the slab cracked, having it cleaned, having it pressed, having it graded to make sure that you want to do it. And if you decide not to proceed with the crossover service, so you submit a CBCS book, they look at it, they determine that the grade's going to drop, you can say no, don't crack the case, and they will just send the book back, I guess, at no cost for the inspection. My guess is that they will charge for shipping, but they don't necessarily say that here in the email. So just another area where there's a little bit of uncertainty here. The email goes on to talk about how the comics must be submitted intact in the other company's holder. They will be removed by them. They will be encapsulated in CGC state-of-the-art holder, blah, blah, blah. They go on to talk about their 5 million collectibles that have been certified, superior protection, et cetera, et cetera. So the rest of it is a lot of sales and marketing kind of stuff. So I'll pause here to see if I get caught up with the chat here. And I apologize, guys, for having to step away. My mail lady, who doesn't like to walk the stairs in front of my house, was ringing the bell, and I could actually see her ringing the bell, and she had a couple of boxes in her hand, so I had to run out and check her. So yes, Nick is asking a question about what this is. This service is called the crossover service, and essentially what it is that you can send your PGX or your CBCS books to CGC. They will inspect those books, they will crack those cases, they will press and clean if that's what you want, and they will regrade, reslab that book in a state-of-the-art CGC holder, and then send that book back to you. So it's a pretty nice service, to be honest with you. Not seeing Been slab in 5 years. CBCS is still cheaper, isn't it? White? Well, I'm not sure, brother, because I want to say that PGX is the cheapest, right? And CGC, based upon this incentive, they are charging $12 for a modern book. And I want to say PGX is like 13. So I'm not sure if CBCS is still cheaper with the 50% off or up to 50% off that CGC is discounting for the purpose of this switchover. So I'm not quite sure. RB3 is asking what's up with the shirt. This is how I dress when I go to work, brother. I have to have sleeves on, at least some kind of sleeve, right? I would have them press a CBCS, probably already pressed, can cause damage. Yeah, TJ Watson is raising a good point here about multiple pressing for books. It's actually a very good point. So it's definitely something to think about. One of the other notes that I kind of wrote for myself here was that there's a good and a bad side to what's about. Oh, hold on before I get to that. Any mention of pedigrees? No mention. There is no mention of pedigrees right here. And Nick is asking, seems like a desperate measure, CBCS, to scare them. Good program though. Yeah, definitely. All right. So one of the things that I kind of thought about as I was wrapping my mind around this was that there's a good and bad side to having potentially an influx of CBCS or PGS books come into CGC. And one of the benefits that I kind of saw was that the registry would grow as a result of those new books coming in, which would give us a better picture of the overall market, right? We would have a better picture of just how many books at a specific grade are out there, right? So that's one benefit that I saw, right? Because if CGC, who I think has the only registry, captures a larger percentage of the market, when you look at their registry in essence reflects at least the graded market of books, which kind of gives you a certain amount of insight, right? Now the downside, and I think there's probably a lot, right? Some of the downsides that I noted here was that a rare book that is in your collection may not be all that rare, right? You may realize potentially that this book that you valued at whatever dollar amount because of its scarcity may not be all that scarce or all that rare. So that is definitely a bad side to what I kind of was thinking. So I think there's other downsides, but that was one of the things that kind of popped into my mind. So the boy who had 7 says he has a CBCS X-Men 1 that he's going to send. He's going to have it pressed and clean, which has not been done, and he's hoping that CGC will give it a higher grade after. What grade is it right now, boy who had 7? I'm just curious. Yeah, so yeah, RB3 is raising a good point here that boy who had 7 is actually saying that it's a 4.0. Yeah, so good luck, brother, getting a higher grade. Definitely good luck on that. So RB3, one of the things that that I want to say that I've heard or that people have done, and you guys may have to correct me on this, is that sometimes when people submit a book from one grading company to another, they will sometimes send the old label or something like that to kind of indicate, or if a book's being resubmitted, they will send the old label to kind of get CGC to adjust its registry to reflect that this, is a book that was maybe reholdered or previously slabbed by CGC or something like that as a way to adjust it. But you're right, there's always going to be a little bit of a disconnect, right, between the books that are out there, right? Whether they are held by one grading company or another, which means that they're graded, or whether they're raw books, right? There's always going to be a discrepancy between those things. And simply what I'm suggesting is that if CGC captures more of the market, then we will have a better picture of at least the graded books that are out there. And yes, there are some caveats that go along with it, but we have somewhat of a better idea of what the total market might look like because it is now sitting with one company who has a registry, unlike 2 other companies who do not have a registry. So I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? I'm surprised that CGC doesn't allow other companies to be added to the registry. They allow that with coins. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very interesting point. I love signed comics. I wasn't aware that they allowed that with coins. Who knows what their strategy is for comics? Maybe it's a little bit different than it is for coins. I'm not quite certain. Who knows? I was actually talking to Jeff, the owner of Go Collect, about some things a couple of weeks ago. And one of my questions for him was, why don't you tap into CBCS's registry to be able to show, their registry data as well, for like the purpose of pulling in numbers and grades and, conditions of books to make it easier to input CBCS books. And he kind of indicated, I guess, that CBCS doesn't have a registry, so they can't necessarily hook into it. And maybe they've signaled to him that they're looking at doing it, but they haven't quite gotten there yet. So, and Ray is saying that PGX is actually the cheapest out there. So good to know. Ray, the comic kid, what is a modern book to be graded? What's the cost for a PGX modern book? I'm curious. Tony Sanders is saying he would send his PGX books for certain. White Whale Comics is saying that PGX isn't a real option to him. Yeah, I hear you on that one. I hear you. Switch Comics, welcome to the live stream. I'm glad you were able to make it. Now, what's interesting, guys, in CGC is the most. So, Ryan, a question for you. Is CGC still the highest with the 50% discount? And the modern book right now is $12. The value is $16.20 and the economy is $22. I'm just curious how those prices at the discount compare to PGX and CBCS. I'm just curious if someone has that there. So Nick says time to buy some PGX books. Okamat, I think I'm saying that correct. Welcome to the live stream. It's good to see you. Travis, yes, these are sleeves, brother. I had to go to work, and this is how I dress when I go to work. I literally came from my car where I'm reading the email, driving down the street. Dangerous, yes, I know, and came in here and set up my camera so that I could do this live stream to break some of this news to you guys. So Tony Sanders is saying he will buy a cheap PGX book and maybe submit it to CGC for regrading. So David, brother, I would encourage you to just do a quick YouTube search for PGX. And my job isn't to bash companies. It's not what I do unless they personally have given me really awful service. And I've never dealt with PGX, so I'm not going to speak to PGX, but what I would say is take some time to do some research and just dig into it for yourself and make a decision. When I did it, when I first was thinking about slabbing books and I started to compare the companies, for me, it came down to CBCS and CGC. And there were a couple of points of difference between them. One of the points was that at the time, CGC was charging a membership fee to submit books, and CBCS wasn't. And so that made CBCS look a little attractive because I didn't have to come out of pocket for a membership like CGC. CBCS also had the signature verification. Right? So I have books in my collection that were signed back in the day when I was a teenager, and my thought was it would be cool to get some of those books like from Mark Bagley slabbed and to have them recognized and authenticated. Even though I was there and saw him sign it, it would be cool to have an authenticated signature. And so that started to make CBCS very attractive to me. And then as CBCS started to grow and evolve and change, they then started to, I think, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, charge for a membership. So you had to have a membership in order to submit a book. And then at that point, the two companies started to look very similar to me. And I started to hear about CBCS being a little slow with turnaround time. And so CGC started looking a little bit more attractive. And so I ultimately ended up going with CGC. And I went with their middle tier package, platinum maybe, can't remember off the top of my head. And I haven't looked back. And my membership is up probably November. And I'll probably renew again because I do like CGC. But to the point that I made in my previous video, and I want to make it here now that, 47, 48 of you are here, I am a big fan of competition. I want CBCS to survive. I want CBCS to thrive. I want PGX to thrive. And I want CGC to continue. And the reason for that is that I believe that competition is healthy. It keeps companies honest. Right? It forces them to offer better services, to keep their prices in check, to differentiate themselves from the competition. And through that competition with one another, it keeps things fair for us as the consumer. So I am a big fan of competition. And in fact, I may or may not have been contacted by a company that is looking to enter the third-party grading. I am not going to break that news here. I'm waiting for them to do a couple of more things, but there are companies out there that are looking at this market and they are evaluating what is happening right now, and they're taking note and they're asking themselves, can I build a better mousetrap? With all the things that are right and wrong about these various companies that we've mentioned, can someone else enter the market? And only time will tell whether someone else can enter the market and actually enter the market the right way. But because of some videos that I've released on this topic, I've gotten the attention of a company, and maybe we will break some news at some point down the line. So more to come on that. So let's see. Kingpin Comics, I guess, is giving somebody an update on what's happening with CGC, I'm sorry, with CBCS and their takeover, the fact that they were taken over by Beckett and then moved to Dallas. Yep, so you guys are having a little conversation around there. So let me get caught up here. Monopolies are not good for the comic book collector. Brother, monopolies are not good for anybody, because I can tell you my cable bill is ridiculous. And in fact, with all of these videos that I've been doing for you guys, Comcast sent me a message saying that I had used 90% of my allotted data feed for this month. So yeah. Is Bueller here? Comics with Bueller's in the house. How you doing? Comic Sniper is here, and Comic Sniper comes in the door and says, we need more competition and accountability. Absolutely, brother. You are indeed correct. I believe that competition is important, and I've said it a couple of times already. I want all of these companies to survive because I think that they're all important for us as the consumer, as the collector. The competition is good. Just like the competition for amongst YouTubers. And I made this point in my live stream yesterday. If you look at what's happening right now, if you look at some of the guys that are in this room, right? Like We Love Comics, Comics with Bueller, Tony Sanders, White Whale Comics, Who Dat Comics, all of these guys are starting to really step up their game across the board with quality content, right? Guys are going live every day. Guys are releasing videos every day. Guys are differentiating themselves from one another in really awesome ways. And I think that in the end, the community benefits because of that competition. And I think it's friendly competition. There is nothing nasty about any of it. You see guys that release content are actually here in the room. Like the great legend is here in the room right now, right? And it's because the competition forces us to be better. And it's no different for PGX, CGC, CBCS. My goal, my hope is that all of them continue to thrive and that maybe someone else even comes in the market and builds a better mousetrap. Only time will tell whether that's possible. What if PGX 9.6 goes down to a 9.0? Were you asking that question to me? No, and that's what Chris is making a very good point here. He says, if I don't give PGX at least a try, how can I give it a fair assessment? You know, that's a wonderful point, and that's why I think I may have said it before you came in here. I basically said to someone that it was not my job to bash PGX. That's not what I'm doing. I wouldn't do that, right? And because I think I even said it, because I haven't used them, like I encourage that person to actually take some time to do their own research, to come to their own determination as to who they wanted to go with. I've never actually used CBCS either. I've only ever used CGC. And so when I talk about things, I talk about my experiences, and that's kind of where I limit it to. And I think, Chris, you definitely get that, brother. I try not to speak out of turn, you know? I try not to speak out of term, and I definitely try not to bash people. And I think I even said this, unless they give me bad service. Like I did badmouth a company a couple of weeks ago because it took them 6 months to send me a book that should have been sent in a matter of like a month and a half, right? And so that was an experience that I had specifically with that company, and I spoke to that experience as a PSA. And other than that, I am not badmouthing anybody, you know? So good stuff. What are you guys saying here? Chris is saying so many people bash them Yeah, that's not my thing, brother. I try not to bash people or companies unless you do something to me, and then it is on. So, well, I think you can tell by auction companies such as Heritage and Commonlink. Yeah, well, again, everybody's making some good points here around, what their thoughts are around the various grading companies, which again, I think is wonderful. I have no problem with people having discussions and having a healthy debate. My whole thing is just, keep it respectful and base it upon, your personal experiences. So. All right, so we'll do a quick recap here and then we will get ourselves out of here. Oh, we just reached the largest group of individuals that have ever joined a live stream here. There are 57 of you guys here, so I'm glad to see each and every one of you. Couple of things. So CGC broke some news today. CGC has now announced that their crossover service has expanded from the New York Comic-Con and is now available online. So if you are a member of CGC, you now have the ability to actually submit books from other grading companies to CGC to have those books graded. And there's a couple of things to mention here, that they are going to do a screening of the top 3 tiers. So your standard, your express, and your walkthrough, the 3 most expensive tiers, they will do a free screening of those books. They will reach out to you and will tell you whether the book that they're looking at will go down a grade or whether the grade will go down. And then they will also give you some idea of whether a press, a clean, or conservation is needed to improve the book. And then you can make the decision whether you want to have that book's slab cracked and then have those services done and then to have the book graded. If the book goes down, if the grade goes down, you only pay $10 for that service. If the grade goes up, you will pay, but it'll be a discounted rate of up to 50%. Now, what's important here is that they don't really talk a whole lot about what will happen. Well, I guess they don't screen the lower tiers, right? So if it's a modern, a value, or an economy book, they won't do a free screen. But what I don't know is whether there's a charge for the screening, right? So I don't know that. So that's a little bit of uncertainty. But if you decide that you want to have the crossover service performed on your book, they are offering up to 50% off. And the prices are, for a modern, it is $12. For a value, it is $16.20. For an economy, it is $22.80. For a standard, $32.50. For express, it is $50. For walkthrough, it is 1.5% of the declared value, and there is a $75 minimum on getting those books graded. A couple of other things here. There is no clarification that they provide about signed books. They say that signed collectibles submitted under crossover service will not receive a CGC signature series label. They don't, however, tell you what label the book will get. My guess is that it won't be yellow and it won't be blue, but they don't exactly say what color label you will get. So that's one thing that I kind of noted here. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this service? Do you think that this is something that you're going to take advantage of? As I was reading the chat here, several people said that they were actually going to take advantage of it. I need to give it some more thought because I think I have maybe 2 handfuls of CBCS books. I don't know. I don't know what I want to do yet. I'm curious whether you guys would actually use them. So TJ Watson is saying signed books will get a green label. That is possible. Yeah, RB3, this is the recap, brother. This is the recap. We're trying to wrap it up here. Somebody's asking what's in the box. I don't know what's in the box. I actually don't know what's in the box. I don't know if I want to open the box on the air. This is the box that I actually had to run away. So JD is saying he's going to call about pedigree. Let me know about that. If I get another book slab, Jeff will just break them. Jeff needs to just play with his My Little Pony comics with Bueller. So this is the box that came. I had to run to the door to get it. I actually don't know what's in there, and someone put their address and name on there. I don't even know who that person is. So Great Legend says he's not sure. Maybe if you get a graded book to sale, can make more money if it is a CGC case. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the points that, which is a little interesting, right? That's a little interesting that they would go there in this email. But one of the bullets that they put here is that they are the industry leader with over 18 years, right, in the market. But then they say the highest prices realized in the marketplace. So it's interesting that they make that point. I mean, I think it's a valid point, but it's an interesting point, Great Legend, that they would actually say that there. So I don't know. I don't know. It's definitely something interesting. So let me see what else is going on in here. It will only make sense if all three agree on. Oh, so someone did make the point about, a couple of points about standardizing the grading, the grades across, right? That might not be a bad thing. And somebody also made the point around a single database or registry for books. That would be wonderful, right? I mean, I think if there were standards across, right, where a tick is a tick, regardless of who you look at. A subscription crease affects the book in this way. I think that standardization would be very good for the market. A single registry would be very good for the market. But again, going back to this whole spirit of competition thing, I don't know if you're going to get anybody to agree with that, right? Because their services and their grading and stuff like that is a point of differentiation, you know. And one could make the argument that CGC is not necessarily risking much with this. And what I mean by that is that they're saying if the grade of a book goes down, you will only pay $10. There are some people that I've heard that have made the argument that CBCS has the most strict and most consistent grading of all three, right? Not my argument. That's an argument that I've heard. I don't know whether you subscribe to it, but if CBCS is the strictest and the most consistently high grading, then they're not really taking too much of a risk of only receiving $10 for grading that book, right? Because if it stays the same or goes up in a grade, you pay a discounted amount, but it's not $10. So it's just interesting, you know, how they're doing it and how much, if any, that they're actually risking, you know? So Spidey Fan is saying the only thing that CBCS needs to improve on is their turnaround time. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the big complaints is that people talk about the turnaround time and about the customer service. Those are the things that people kind of complain about. You know, their cases, I don't think are all that great. And I personally like the CGC cases better. But turnaround time, I think someone recently told me, a couple of people told me recently that they waited 6 months to get a book. That's tough. And a lot of that may have to do with the move to Dallas from Florida. So maybe we chalk it up to some of that stuff. So I don't know. Just Pele is saying that CBCS offers the best grading, CGC is the most recognized, and PGX is the most cheapest. I have no opinion of that. I am, however, going to read the comments so that you guys can make up your own mind as to what you think about that. All right, so let's see what else is going on here. JD is saying, I think it's good to be honest. He prefers the CGC slabs for various and obvious reasons. Yeah, that's another point that they actually raised in their major points of differentiation. The superior protection of CGC's archival holder. They call it, you know, a state-of-the-art holder which combines superior optics and the most advanced archival materials, making it ideal for visual display and preservation. I think they need to add some UV protection. Just saying, just a little UV protection might not be a bad thing. So, all right. For my shop, I use CGC for his personal collection. Yeah, Just Pele it's interesting. He's using a bifurcated strategy here, right? So for his shop, he's using CGC because it's widely recognized, but for his personal collection, because I think he has a very high bar for grading, I think that's why he uses CBCS. So very interesting bifurcated strategy there for Just Pele. And I think that's with all of this stuff, man. I think you've got to, you know, with all of this stuff, and you guys hear me say this all the time, you've got to do your own research. You've got to decide what you want to believe and what you want to support and who you want to give your money to. There is no wrong way to do this thing, this hobby, and it is all about personal preference, and it's about what works best for you. There are some guys that love PGX. That's cool. Some guys love CBCS. That's cool. Some guys love multiple companies. That's cool too. There is no wrong way to do it. And I think I got that right when the way I articulated Just Pele's bifurcated strategy. So thank you for that. I'm getting to know you, brother. I think that's what it is. Yeah, so from Heroes to Icon says he just saw some recent unboxing for CGC books, and he likes the new cases. The new cases are slick, man. They really are. I like how they kind of nest together, and they sit quite nicely where they won't slide off. So there's a couple of really nice features, man. They look good. I think they feel good in your hand. I think that visually they present the book quite nice. And the knock, of course, would be a couple of things. It would be the consistency, right? Because I picked up a book from CGC that was not seated properly in the holder, and it bothers me every time I look at the book. And the Newton rings, right? That they don't necessarily acknowledge as a defect. I actually showed a book to my wife, and she said, "What are all those swirls?" And it was like, can you just look at the book, you know, and not see the swirls? Just do what I do. Pretend like they're not even there. But, you know, I think that brings up a point that with all of these companies, they have pros and cons, right? None of them are perfect, right? And again, it just dovetails back to a previous point about you have to look at them as imperfect creatures and decide what level of imperfection are you willing to deal with, you know? And whatever you decide for your collection, I'm sure that is the right decision to make, you know? Rainbow jizz indeed, you know? Dude, she looked at the book and she just didn't even pause. What are those rings? What are those swirls? I'm like, babe, you're not supposed to see those, you know? From Heroes to Icon says he's going to try to send some books in. Of course, he will send books to the other two companies as well. There you go. Just Pele saying personally he does engrave modern books for his personal collection, but he does. Oh, wait a minute, I lost that. But he does sell modern comics. Got it. All right, cool. All right, guys, so I am going to get myself out of here. Maybe I'll unbox this box off the air and see what's in here. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to hang out with me just a little bit. Hopefully no one took offense to anything that was said in this video. This video is about breaking some news about CGC. It is not necessarily an endorsement of CGC. I have my personal preferences, but I am not trying to impose those preferences upon you. It is important for each and every one of us to make up our own minds about who we want to do business with and how we want to do business, right? I am not here to bash any company or any person or any book, whether it is DC or Marvel. I am here to try to inform people's decision making and to also have some fun, right? You guys know me. That's what this is about. It is not about anything else other than those things that I just articulated. But I appreciate you hanging out with me. If you have not watched the video that I just released a little while ago, I would encourage you to check it out. It is a little bit of a spec book maybe, but it's definitely about a really cool character. I have another video coming out tomorrow around 3:30. Just so you know, if you were looking for new content and you signed up for the little notifications, but you're not seeing them for whatever reason, know that I release videos Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then I also go live possibly a couple of other times and maybe even release another video during the week, but always Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So if you're not seeing it, just swing back by and check me out. But thank you guys for hanging out for just a little bit. I hope that you found this video informative and maybe even a little entertaining as well. Take care.